Hey film fans. Gotcha. This is Movie Talk with Aaron Hunter. I'm Aaron Hunter, and in this video I'm introducing a new series considering the films of Mumblecore. For those of you who might not be aware, Mumblecore is a movement or an aesthetic grouping or a style of film, mostly American film, that came about in the early 2000s and lasted, depending on whom you ask, for about 10 years or so. Some people say it's still going on. Mumblecore films are low budget, very low budget, indie films, oftentimes with a non-professional cast or a mostly non-professional cast, and they tend to revolve around the lives of young people, people in their 20s into their early 30s, as they go through life trying to figure out who they are, what they're going to do, what life's all about, exploring their emotional landscape, although they might not put it that way, trying to make lasting or meaningful connections with others. Basically the kind of films that have always been made about people in their 20s in the context of the first decade of the 21st century. So I think you might call the generation that these films are about Xennials, I'm not sure, or Zennials. And that's one of the things about the films that interests me, because when I watch these films, part of me who was in my 20s in the 90s looks at them and, I mean, it feels like home. And then there are things about them, the growth of the internet, although it's not always there, the growth of mobile phones, although they're not always there, a kind of social awkwardness that I recognize but don't completely relate to, that all these things kind of feel more millennial, although obviously these groupings are constructed generalizations. But this is what the films tend to be about, and we'll look at how the films we consider in this series do that, how well they do that, or how they might sort of fall short sometimes. To kick things off, we're going to start with the 2002 film that was directed by Andrew Bujalski. The film and Bujalski are often considered the sort of foundational texts of Mumblecore. It's often called the first film of Mumblecore. And Bujalski has had an interesting relationship with the term Mumblecore. Like all movements or stylistic groupings, the members or the practitioners didn't sit down one day and just decide this is what we're going to call ourselves. I mean, that has happened sometimes. But it evolved out of the practice of this new generation of young filmmakers making these low-budget indie films about their lives and the lives of their friends around them. And there have been times when Bujalski and others have kind of embraced the term, but there are times when they say it's not a movement, it's not a sort of stylistic manifesto or ethos. And so the term can be a little bit contentious in which films fall within the grouping and which films don't. Can it have professional actors like Anna Kendrick or not? And so on. So we'll consider those questions as we go through this series as well. But we're going to kick it off today as we consider the 2002 film Funny Ha Ha in this episode of What Makes This Film Great. Funny Ha Ha is a 2002 film written and directed by Andrew Bujalski. And it was also edited by Bujalski, which I'll come back to, because the editing is one of the things about this film that I really love and that I think makes it work really well. The cinematography is by an Austrian DP named Matthias Grünski, and he's worked with Bujalski on most of his films. And the cinematography on this film, although it's low budget, clearly low budget in terms of shooting on 16mm and, you know, the use of natural lighting and things like that, the framing choices, the camera choices in this film are another thing that make it work so well. And that combination of Grünski's cinematography and Bujalski's editing really make this movie sing. The cast includes Katie Dollenmeyer as Marnie, the protagonist of the film. Christian Rudder plays Alex, her kind of awkward on-again, off-again love interest. Miles Page plays her good friend Dave, with whom she also has a kind of awkward relationship. Marshall Levy is Wyatt, and the director Andrew Bujalski plays maybe the most awkward character in the film, Mitchell. And along with the editing and the cinematography, the performances in this film, which are incredibly naturalistic, which gives it its sort of Cassavetes vibe, are what make the film work. What's it about? The plot of the film is quite simple, as it often is with Mumblecore films, because the plot tends to be an artifice on which these close-up examinations of these characters' interior lives is scaffolded. But it's worth recounting. Marnie Dollenmeyer is a recent college graduate. She's living in Boston, and presumably she went to a pretty good university. She's doing the sort of temp to waitress to not quite sure what I'm gonna do work thing. She's living in a cheap apartment in a neighborhood where a lot of her other friends live. And Marnie is 23, she turns 24 in the film, and she's at that place where a lot of 23 and 24-year-olds are. What's next? Who am I? What am I gonna do with my life? She's confused, and the film opens with a snapshot of her confusion. She's drunk, although not, fall down drunk, silly drunk, and she shows up at a tattoo artist asking for a tattoo of what she doesn't know, maybe a Celtic design, maybe a cow, and the tattoo artist won't give her the tattoo because it's his practice not to tattoo drunk people, which kind of bums her out, but she understands and is okay with. It's a great opening snapshot of who Marnie is. She thinks she wants something. She doesn't pursue it with passion. She's kind of okay when it doesn't work out because she doesn't really know what it is she wants. One thing she thinks she wants is a relationship with Alex. And Alex is a character who's talked about for a lot of the first part of the film. He's part of this friend group, and we hear early on that he's recently broken up with his long-term girlfriend.
I know.
Can you go to the dentist tomorrow?
Oh yeah, sure.
Hit my peak. 1 o'clock?
Wait, no, I can't do it. I'm supposed to have lunch with Alex tomorrow.
Oh, the old pep talk.
Yeah, I'm trying to cheer him up a little bit,
I was studying. You were playing fucking...
That's another way.
You guys, what, is something wrong with Alex?
Are you saying that's
There's nothing wrong with him exactly. He's just going through kind of a hard time.
Yeah, Nina broke up.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
I mean, someday.
Like a week ago or something.
Marnie has made it clear throughout, including to Alex previously, that she likes him, she sees him as more than a friend. And part of what the movie's about is their growing close, drifting apart, growing close, in part because Alex doesn't know what he wants either. He has this former girlfriend who he seems to still be attracted to, in love with, interested in, something like that, and that becomes a major plot point later in the film. But he also clearly really likes Marnie. He likes spending time with her. He seems to be attracted to her. And so he's one of these people in their 20s who send mixed messages, if you remember that term. I don't know if that term is still the parlance of our times, but in the 90s this was mixed messages. That's what Alex does. She's got a group of friends that she goes out to dinner with, goes to house parties with. I love the house party scenes. They're drinking wine out of coffee cups, and that's part of it. Oof. I spent a lot of my 20s in Portland, Maine, and in Orono, Maine, and being in these parties, the decor, the wine out of the coffee cups, the music in the background, so much of it to me feels like being at a party on Munjoy Hill in 1998 or something like that. Anyhow, she has this friend group that includes Dave and Rachel. They're kind of the couple whose apartment everybody goes to for parties and so on. And then she has these series of working relationships. She gets a temp job for a while where she meets Mitchell, played by Bujalski, and he's clearly interested in her. He pursues her. She likes him as a friend, and maybe she sends him mixed messages too. We'll come back to that. And then near the end of the film, she gets a research job with Alex's uncle, who's a professor of religious studies, again at some Boston university. And there she meets Jackie, who she wants to pursue a friendship with, and begins to as the film is winding down. That's kind of it for plot. The main sort of through lines might be, will she or won't she eventually get together with Alex? Will she or won't she eventually find a job that satisfies her, or a career path, or a way in life? And spoiler alert, both of those remain unanswered at the end of the film. The film has a very abrupt open ending that will sort of shock you, maybe annoy you if you're not used to this sort of thing, but it just kind of ends in medias res. A lot of times stories begin in the middle of things. This one just kind of ends in the middle of things, but I find that to be one of its most kind of challenging but also emotionally satisfying elements. Within this very basic plot, in this sort of low budget aesthetic, a lot of it's shot either on the street with natural light or in these apartments. What was so appealing, what was so attractive about Funny Haha and about Mumblecore more broadly? What makes this film work? First off is Dolan Meyer's performance as Marnie, and she's just fantastic in what looks like, I oftentimes when we describe a performance as naturalistic, it can come across as meaning easy or simple, something along the lines of, oh, she's just playing herself. There might be some truth to that. I know nothing about Dolan Meyer. She hasn't been in very many films. She's in Bajowski's next film, and then she shows up on IMDb in one or two other things. I think she went on to study film later, and at least according to her Wikipedia page, she's currently an archivist at the Academy Library in Los Angeles. But in Funny Haha, she's a real revelation because her emotional register in this film is just outstanding, because she captures the feeling in her performance of wanting something more, not knowing what it is, and the frustration in the sort of gap between those two things. She's dissatisfied, in the opening scene when she goes for this tattoo exemplifies that. She doesn't know what she wants. She doesn't know who she is. And Dolan Meyer captures this feeling really well in almost every scene she's in. Sometimes she's playful and funny. Sometimes she just wants to hang out and be one of the gang. Sometimes she's feeling soulful. Sometimes she wants to be alone. And she modulates between these within the same scene oftentimes. And it's that makes her character so appealing and so easy to kind of empathize with and bond with. Here's a scene that I really like, and it's after Alex has broken up with his girlfriend, and everybody has kind of been gossiping, and it's gone through the grapevine that Marnie likes Alex, and Alex has actually called her in this awkward phone call and said, maybe now's not the right time, but then they end up going out on a date anyway. And let's just take a look at this scene.
What do you mean? You are too, though.
Well, I just...
You're like yesterday Cro-Magnon man, today, you know.
Yeah, today in stasis.
Caveman
you know
lawyer.
Right, exactly.
Stasis.
Yeah.
You're not in stasis, seriously.
Sort of, I am. Coffee. It's just...
Oh, thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Oh my god.
Gotta do something, you know. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. Have you ever seen that before?
No.
It's pretty good, huh?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
Totally disgustifying.
Who knew there was that much juice in one eye?
Well done.
Yeah.
That is
No
the
problem.
most disgusting thing I've ever seen in a diner.
Yeah. Yeah.
But wait till you check this shit out. Moo. 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 Moo.
What is that?
Moo. 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 It's a cow. It's a cow.
Doing what? Peeing? I don't see what that has to
It's
do
not
with anything.
peeing.
Yes, it is.
No. Moo. Moo.
Is it supposed to be like lactating or something?
Yes, lactating. Peeing.
Seems weird.
Come on.
I don't know. You made it up.
No, my dad. Are you fucking with me? You knew what that was.
Her performance there of being able to sort of modulate between being enraptured with Alex, kind of disturbed by him, wondering if he's messing with her, cautious of her emotional landscape, her emotional feelings. She's protective of herself, but also curious about engaging more. It all comes out in that little sequence. And it's in moments like that, which are sprinkled throughout the film, that she creates this character that you want to succeed, but you also kind of want to help her succeed. But all of this makes Marnie a little frustrating too, particularly for the men around who are all trying to get to know her in different ways. Come back to them. But for the viewer as well, because we're conditioned as cinema goers, particularly if we mostly watch Hollywood films, to keying in on a protagonist and a protagonist type. Yes, we like variations, but once we get to the point where like, this is Luke Skywalker and I know what he would do in this situation or in that situation. This is Ethan from Mission Impossible. This is Katniss from the Hunger Games. Whatever it is, whether it's an action film, whether it's a rom-com, Harry and Sally, like you know how Harry and Sally are gonna act after that first drive across country. And so on. So we're used to like getting to that place with them, and yeah, we want to see them surprise us, and yeah, we want to be kept on our toes, but we want it to fit. And when you encounter a character like Marnie, who is sweet and adorable and who calls forth sort of empathy, but who's also unpredictable in her decisions, unpredictable in her behavior, it can be a little bit frustrating. And this is another part of the film that just like zoom, mainlines me right back to my own 20s, because I've met people like this, particularly women who were in this kind of mid-20s bubble of not knowing what they want, but feeling the expectation of knowing what they want, particularly when it comes to men. And resenting that pressure, but also wanting to engage in relationships, whatever type of relationship they might be. And so you get this duality, or even more than a duality. And when you're a viewer or a person in that person's life, trying to understand where you fit, and these modulations or big changes keep happening, that can be really frustrating. One example in the film comes in two interactions that Marnie has with Mitchell, played by Bojalski. And Mitchell is a nice guy, a socially awkward guy, a little bit nerdy or geeky, and he's played by Bojalski intentionally this way, who Marnie spends some times in an office temp job with. And he kind of shows her the ropes, and he's very friendly. There's nothing that weird about him. And then on Marnie's last day, she leaves and he follows her out, and we get this moment.
I don't know. I think I've enjoyed knowing you, and you seem real cool and everything.
Thanks.
Oh, well. So I guess I don't know if it makes sense for us to, if you wanted to like hang out sometime or like go out sometime.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can really go out with you, but
No, that's understood. I meant to ask that, but it was also.
But no, totally, I mean, I'd love to hang out.
Exactly. I would love to hang out as well. So why don't I get your number?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You could, we could get together sometime or hang out or something.
Sure. I'm sorry, I did not mean to sound like a jerk there.
You didn't at all. I'm sure. Obviously, you have a boyfriend, and
yeah,
of course.
Now, the interesting thing about that, besides all this sort of typical social awkwardness, is that Marnie doesn't have a boyfriend here. It's been made known to us that she's interested in Alex, but she's also at this point had a couple other flirtations that I'll come back to, but she's not in any kind of relationship. So as a viewer, you're like, oh, that was a lie. Now, it's not a big deal. She's just kind of giving this guy who she's not that interested in an easy story. She's not even lying so much as letting him believe his own assumption. But where it becomes interesting is that she does actually befriend Mitchell, and they do actually spend some time together, quite a bit of time together in the film. And later, when they're out to dinner one evening, we get this.
This perhaps is a foolish thing to say, but I just think that that your boyfriend, whoever he is a very fortunate man.
Well, that's nice. You're just, I mean, assuming I have a boyfriend, you're just being nice?
Oh, no, I'm not assuming. What do you mean? Are you saying you don't have a boyfriend? You don't have a boyfriend?
No.
Marnie, you told me you had a boyfriend. We
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. We were in the parking lot. Well, we were in the parking lot, and I don't know if I brought it up, or I don't remember how it came up. I'm sure I asked you
remember
if
that.
you did. No, well, I was being a little too forward. I think you were trying to let me down easy.
Oh, well, no, that's not. I mean, I don't mean to lie to you. That's terrible.
Well, it's none of my
I
business.
don't know what I was thinking.
No, you won't.
I love this moment because it pays off the earlier scene. So it's good writing or good filmmaking if that was improvised. I don't know. And so it pays off the earlier moment for the audience, and we can go, it came out good. I can, scratch that itch or tick that box. But the conversation around it is very interesting to me because this is Marnie's film. Marnie's in every scene. She's clearly the protagonist. It's about her from the beginning to the end. So what's going on in the interiors, the emotions of other characters, we can only guess at based on their relationships with Marnie, how they act with Marnie. But if you think about Mitchell, who is this kind of socially awkward guy, but fairly confident, he asks her out, he pursues her, he's maybe overly confident later in the film, but he's asked her out that first time, and she's let it be believed that she has a boyfriend. And so later, so you can imagine in that whole time, he's been, like a lot of mid-20s people would be, curious, wondering, why did she let me have her phone number? Why does she want to keep seeing me if she has a boyfriend? He's probably going through all of this, his own emotional turmoil. And when he hears this, that she doesn't have a boyfriend, there's going to be a lot of stuff going off in him. First of all, yay, maybe I have a chance now. But second of all, wait, did she lie to me? Do I want to have a chance with someone who's going to lie to me? Is she lying to me right now by telling me that she didn't tell me that in the past? All of this stuff is going on in him, and we don't have total access to that except for how he performs this scene. But because we've had access to Marnie, we can actually believe that she doesn't remember that. And so she doesn't think she's lying. She's just misremembered it. Or she's lying to him again, which is weird. So this is what I mean about her kind of, this sort of duality of her own confusion about who she is and where she's at, that it makes her hard to pin down. And I can see how some viewers would find that frustrating, but I find it incredibly exciting in this character who's mostly kind of on an emotional even keel. So we don't get like a lot of, there's no sob scenes with her. There's a couple lying in bed and bummed scenes. And there's no like euphoric scenes of her. She's mostly just kind of confused and even keeled throughout the film. So it's these behavior patterns that let us into her confused thinking about herself, life, and how she fits into it all. The men in this film are fascinating. And the film was made at a time when the concept of toxicity, toxic male behavior, toxic masculinity was known and was a topic of study in academic scholarship and so on. And people in like counseling professions and so on would have been aware of it, but it hadn't entered the sort of popular discourse like it has today. And so I don't want to imply at all that Bujalski's here making a film about toxic masculinity, intentionally anyway. And I don't really want to imply that any of the men in this film are toxic. But what they do really well, and another thing I love about the film, is that they straddle the line between emotionally immature, between themselves being lost and unsure of their place in life, and entitled in the way that mildly toxic men often are, or maybe even non-toxic men. Most of the men in the film feel themselves drawn into Marnie's orbit. She's cute, she seems fun, she likes to go to parties, she has a bit of that, you know, cool girl vibe that would come up in Gone Girl a few years later. And she's also a little bit enigmatic, not intentionally, because she's going through all the things I've just described. And so she has that allure of, I'm going to penetrate this exterior and be the one to get in there. Sorry for the horrible double entendre. And so these men kind of circulate around her, and she doesn't always understand why. And so this is where also a lot of the incredible watchability of this film comes from. And she wants something, doesn't know what it is. They want something from her, don't know what it is. And it leads to really interesting situations in the film. And I'd like to look at two. So she goes to a party one night at Dave and Rachel's house, and she's quite upset because things right now don't seem like they're gonna happen with Alex. And she meets this guy, Wyatt, who she's met once or twice before. He's an engineer. They've had a little bit of banter. And they go outside the party onto a balcony, and we get this scene.
Sign a piece of paper, get your habit, and they'll wash your sins away. They'll just absolve you of everything you ever did. I don't know.
But great, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's
I'm sorry.
no, me too. You'll have to.
Hey, Wyatt, man. Right on. It's been good seeing you.
I like this scene for a couple of reasons. First of all, Marnie gets right away that Wyatt's not into it, and she's okay with it. Like, she's gonna leave the party after this because she's a little bit embarrassed. But she doesn't get mad at him. She doesn't feel like he owes her anything. Oh, you came out on the balcony alone with me, so clearly this is what you wanted. She just kind of rolls with it. Later, not much later, when she leaves the party, she's out in her car, and Dave comes out. Now, Dave is an old friend of hers. They've known each other for a long time, but he's in a fairly serious cohabitory relationship with Rachel, and he comes out, and we get this moment.
How are you doing?
I don't know. I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay. Marnie, I like you a lot.
Oh, I like you too, Dave. I feel bad, though.
No, don't feel bad.
I don't care. It's okay.
No, come on, don't feel bad.
But, there's your girlfriend right up there. There she is,
True. Well.
Again, she rolls with it. She knows this isn't right. She understands what Dave's doing. She's been drinking a little bit, so she's in that space. But she doesn't kind of chastise him or punish him, which is probably sort of sending mixed messages to him as well. But he clicks out of it. He realizes, this isn't the right thing to do. And that ends that. That doesn't become a thing in the film. It's just this sort of moment. But it's juxtaposed so clearly with the Wyatt rejection of her that it gives us some insight into how Marnie looks at the way, dating for 20-something exennials works. And it's very different from how her relationship with Mitchell's gonna play out. So she meets Mitchell at the temp job, and then she goes on the date with him where he finds out she doesn't have a boyfriend. And then they have this weird day that they spend together where Marnie has decided she wants to be outside more, she wants to do more exercise, so she calls Mitchell up, come play basketball with me. And they spend time playing basketball, then they go back to her apartment where he teaches her how to play chess. And then we have this moment.
Well, now you just look you just look kind of depressed.
No, I'm just tired. Dribbling.
Oh no, of course. But you look like a little bit tired, or even mostly tired, and just a smidgen depressed as well.
I don't know.
Well, that's lame. I think that we had a nice day. You know, I think we had a good time out there. I think now is not a time for.
I agree. We had a great time. What are you getting at?
Well, I don't know. What more do you want from life?
I don't want anything. What? Are you fucking with me?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess I am. I don't know. It seems like an appropriate time to fuck with you. I don't know. All I mean is that I just think that we went out, we had a nice day, we had a productive day, we did all these things, you know, like I said, and you could just, if you were here in this moment now, then you could smile about it or something. I don't know.
This, I think, is a lot of what the film is about. And I think it's quite cool that Bujalski plays this character himself. Because Mitchell is not a bad guy. I don't know if I would call him toxic, but I think if we took Mitchell from 2002 and put him today and 20 years later, he would read as creepy, or he would be coded as, you know, oh, he's just some sort of incel or something like that. I think that's true. Because he's pushy and he's a little aggressive and he's awkward about it. And he, unlike Marnie in those two previous scenes, he can't roll with it because he has this sense of entitlement that I have spent this day with you, and so now, therefore, you owe me. And he doesn't come right out and put it that way, but you can see he's trying to be a nice guy about it. That's his expectation. And it ends with this.
Jesus, Mitchell! What the fuck?
No, wait, no, come on.
That
No, wait,
was
Ronnie, wait,
stupid.
don't get mad. I'm sorry.
That was stupid, Mitchell. It was like, you know, it wasn't funny and people could have gotten hurt.
He gets angry and acts childish, and I mean, mildly so, but violent. So this is what I mean by this borderline. Like when Dave kisses her, even though he's clearly in another relationship, again, I think that would read totally differently today, but Marnie sees this as kind of a mistake, as drunkenness, as a friend. They've probably had some kind of attraction in the past, but she's able to sort of modulate her behavior towards him in such a way that they move on. And it was a dumb thing for him to do, but he understands right away to back off and what a dumb thing it was to do. Whereas Mitchell is just like, he's still straddling the line, but he's leaning toxic, I think. And his behavior in this sequence shows that. And this is what I really like about the film, because Marnie is meant to navigate the landscape of mid-20s romantic situations, dating life, and so on, with these kind of men. None of whom are bad necessarily, but none of whom know what the hell they're doing. And that's frustrating for her because she also doesn't know what the hell she's doing. I mentioned earlier that Grunsky's cinematography is a really important component of the film, and if you're the type that thinks of good cinematography as painterly and pretty golden hour sunsets and things like that, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about shot selection, framing, occasional camera movement, and how those decisions from Grunsky, and probably Bujalski with him, increase the film's sense of intimacy. A lot of them are simple sort of shots that have been going on for a long time, but the film extends them. It pushes them to a place where it's almost kind of, I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but where you're wondering, when are we going to get a cut? When are we going to get a wider shot or a two shot or something like that? And it starts from the very beginning when Marnie walks into that tattoo parlor.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
All right. You do tattoos, huh?
This is the place, yeah? Want to get tattooed?
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a tattoo.
You know what you want to get?
No, but I'm thinking about it right now.
You want to get like a tribal, floral, Celtic designs, animal?
What's the one with like the interlacing stuff?
Another example comes in that scene I've already showed you where Marnie's talking with Wyatt about nuns and then they kiss. And the framing there on her face and just the corner of Wyatt's nose as she talks to and responds to him. But another example I like is it's a really weird and slight moment in the film. And it's kind of about a third of the way through when Marnie and Alex are going to go out on their date. It's before the stabbing the creamer moment. And she goes to his house and they have this awkward moment where she has said that she's not going to drink anymore. And they have this little dance around, do you want the beer? Do you not want the beer? They're going to go out for dinner. But Alex's roommate shows up with this bizarre story about the neighborhood kids who kind of ganged up on him and beat him up a little bit before he befriended them. And the story is very funny. The guy tells the story really well in this kind of roundabout, elusive way. But I love how it's filmed and shot. And I won't show the whole thing. It's a little bit on the long side. But particularly the way Alex is framed and the way he acts throughout this sequence.
How's it
Hey.
going?
What?
You want a gummy bear?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. What? You look amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I was outside, and you know the kids who sit on the stoop, they call him a Rough Rider? So tonight I was practicing wiffle ball, and they kind of surrounded me, and they were yelling and screaming, and this one kid, man, like their leader is named The Cheeks, and I mean, he was just cursing and cursing, really making fun of me. And so finally, he's like down here, and I'm like, I grab him, and I'm like, listen, kid, you got quite a mouth on you, you know? And I said something like, little guys shouldn't mess with big guys.
Oh.
Big mistake. There were like 7 of them. They knocked me down, beating the crap out of me, like throwing dirt on me.
He's so sort of awkward here because what he wants is to be going out with Marnie. Now, this is his first moment. You know, we've had all this set up throughout the film where should they or shouldn't they, and he's finally decided maybe we'll try something. He calls her up. She comes over. It's awkward because of the beer, but they finally decided they're going to go out, and then there's this interruption, this intrusion that breaks into, you know, maybe the awkwardness is going to end. It's not, but maybe he's thinking there. And so just when he thinks it's about to be smooth sailing, it gets awkward again. And the best part of that is the cut to the close-up on Alex as he's listening and he's watching his roommate tell the story, but also turning to look at Marnie to get her reaction, and also awkward in his own space. And that moment of framing, there's instances like that throughout the film where we're seeing one character respond to others, and we're getting through their performance and through the framing a sense, a snapshot into their interiority so that we better understand, you know, a little bit what all of this means to them. The other thing I mentioned early on is the importance of Bujalski's editing here. And some of it, like in that sequence with Alex and the roommate, it's pretty standard one-shot, two-shot coverage. It just works so well with the framing that I mentioned. But other times there are these very sort of abrupt editing decisions, and I don't know if that came out of a lack of film, a lack of coverage, and he just had to sort of be like, we didn't get the shot or whatever it was, or if it's more intentionally done. But it works really well to disrupt slightly, not like intensely, but to disrupt your immersion into the story, because you'll be watching a scene or a sequence and then it just ends and we're somewhere else. And I really ended up liking this a lot. Here's one example that's kind of early in the film. It's before the sequence we just watched quite a bit. And Marnie's talking to, I think her name is Jennifer. Some of the names are hard to catch in this. I think it's Jennifer, who's Alex's sister. And she has been kind of working behind the scenes to hook the two of them up, because she likes Marnie, she likes Alex, and she thinks it would be cool if they would get together. And there's this long conversation where Alex now knows this, and he calls Marnie on the phone, and they have this really awkward, stilted conversation. I'll just show you a snippet of it here.
What's going on?
Nothing much. How are you?
I'm just kind of hanging out today and stuff. Listen, I was talking to my sister earlier, and y'all were hanging out the other day, right? Last night. It was what? What? Hello? Oh, sorry. No, never mind. So, she was, I don't know, she was just saying, like, she was saying some crazy stuff, and, like, I don't know, and I was just wondering what y'all were talking about yesterday.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff.
And you can see that Jen is sitting there with Alex while he's having the conversation. It ends. Marnie's confused, so she calls Jen, not knowing that Alex has just called her from Jen's phone number. This is what I mean, like, this is very 90s. And, you know, she doesn't know who's calling from what phone number and so on. So she calls Jen while Alex is still standing there and tries to get Jen to explain to her, why did Alex just call me like that? And what's going on? And Jennifer's open. She's like, oh, I told him that you liked him. I thought that was cool. And as the conversation begins to wind down, but maybe not quite fully, there's this cut.
I don't know. It just went badly. I don't know. I'm just wondering, what did you tell him?
Yeah, I mean, I told him that, I thought that maybe you guys going out would be a good possibility. I mean, he's single now, and, I mean, he talks about you a lot, and, I mean, I just didn't think, like, what we said was in confidence, you know?
No, I don't know. I mean, I just, no, I mean, it wasn't like a big secret, I guess. It was just, I wasn't really expecting him to...
Was he mean to you, or... It just didn't work out?
That's like 5 years
That's
ago.
why I'm
when I was
doing
doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so fun. I've never met.
I love that, because there's this sense that, well, that's over. We don't have to wind down. We don't have to get to the end. But also, logically, like when you see a cut in a film, you have to think about what is the connection between the scene we're in and the scene we cut to, or the scene we're in and the scene we just left, however you sort of think about time. And what is that connection there? It's that Marnie, as she will be throughout the film, is still confused. And when you're in your 20s and this is your social circle, what do you do when you're confused about things? Keep doing the social thing. Go to the next party. Show up. Be there. You're floating through this time and space, and you don't know what to do, so you just keep doing the routine. And that cut tells that story, and it's reinforced again by a couple of other cuts. And these happen at this really interesting moment, and it's after Alex and Marnie have gone out, and they're coming home, and Marnie comes across another friend of hers whom we haven't met yet, Liz, who's passed out drunk behind the wheel of her car. Doesn't know where she is. They wake her up and she's confused. She clearly shouldn't be behind the wheel of the car. Marnie knows that, and she's like, I got your keys. You're gonna come and stay with me. And so she takes her up and puts her to bed, and she's taking care of her, but then she realizes, even though she's been out with Alex and now she's had this kind of unpredictable encounter with Liz, her night's not done yet. So she goes to a party, of course. And there she drinks to excess, and we get this other great cut.
Hey Josh, you got one of those photos for me, man? You got one of those for me? Sucks, man. I got a light, dude. I'll give it to you.
Welcome. Anybody else? You good?
I don't know, for beer, man? I'm always good for beer.
Marnie, wake up. Sorry. Do you want some toast?
There are a couple of things that I absolutely love about this, but again, it's to think about sort of what comes before and what comes after. And that cut there is a really kind of cause and effect, or fuck around and find out sort of situation, where there's also an irony, because what unfolds in the morning is that Liz takes care of Marnie. Marnie has taken care of Liz before. Liz takes care of Marnie. And so what's going on in this whole sequence, and the cut really activates it hard, I think, for me anyway, is that a lot of the film's themes come out here. Because what you get in this film, as I've said repeatedly, is 20-somethings trying to figure out who they are. And in doing so, they hurt each other. And it's not always intentional. That's why I spent some time earlier talking about that fine line between sort of awkward and toxic, because I don't think, with maybe a couple mild exceptions, anyone is trying to hurt each other, but they are hurting each other. And it got me to thinking about how, you know, in life, we are taught how to manage so many social situations. When you're first in school, you raise your hand if you have to go to the bathroom, raise your hand if you have a question. This is how you share. This is how you wait your turn. All these sorts of things that carry us through kind of elementary school and high school. And those rules change a little bit when you get to college, if you go to college, but they change kind of by degree, right? And a lot of those rules apply when you go into the workplace. You've learned how to socialize with people who are your sort of colleagues, classmates, compatriots, right? But you also learn things like how to behave in a restaurant, how to behave on public transport. If you live in a city with a subway or a bus or tram or whatever it is, you know who to give your seat to based on who you are and based on who they are. And that might change from city to city, but you learn that stuff when you're doing it with your parents. And yet when we get out of school and that whole structure is gone, even though it's replaced for many people by the workplace, what school brings with it a lot also is a secondary structure around emotional connections, whether they're friendships or sexual relationships or romantic relationships, whatever they might be. And that whole system is taken away, and now you're expected to be adult in the world, and you haven't been trained like how not to send mixed messages, how to tell people what you think in a way that is kind and honest, how to make an overture to someone you might be interested in that doesn't have to be awkward, how to reject someone who's made an overture to you that doesn't have to be awkward, all this sort of stuff. And so as people in their 20s, and this is why this is a perennially interesting type of film to make, as they negotiate these emotional landscapes, they're bound to make mistakes. And those mistakes on occasion are bound to hurt people that they care about. But what I love about this scene with Marnie and Liz, both at the car, then Marnie at the party, then Marnie hungover the next morning and Liz making coffee, is that they do care for each other and they do care about each other and they try to take care of each other. And this is what I think makes this film so interestingly complex, is that at once Marnie's in this world where she doesn't know who she is, she doesn't know what she wants, and as a result of that, she's unsure and maybe a little bit unpredictable, and the people around her are unsure and a little unpredictable. But they are trying to help each other. When Jen tries to set Marnie and Alex up, she's not trying to create this awkward phone call situation. She's trying to get two people that she cares about together because she thinks it would be good. When Alex gets Marnie a job with his uncle at the university and then occasionally shows up, he's not trying to put her in an awkward situation. He's trying to get her a better job. He's trying to help her. Even though he's sending her mixed messages about will we or won't we, am I going back with my ex or not, he's also trying to help her as a person that he cares about. And this is where the sort of complexity of this film comes in, and the editing and the cinematography go a long way towards, through their juxtaposition of images and situations, go a long way towards deepening the sort of complexity of those emotional landscapes. I should have said at the top that I have seen almost no Mumblecore films. So if you have, and if you're an aficionado of these movies, let me know in the comments what I got right, what I got wrong. Other ones I should see. I do have a sort of semi-firm short list, but I'm open to other suggestions. Also though, watching Funny Ha Ha, which I only picked because it is meant to be the kind of foundational text for this stylistic grouping, has got me really excited. You guys know that I love things like Hal Hartley. I love low budget films. I love indie films. And this was just a joy to watch. One of the things, I said it reminds me of the 90s, but also not, is one of the things that's not is the lack of cynicism. Some of the characters are cynical about some things, but the film's tone is not cynical. It is looking at these characters and their situation and probing their lives and their emotions in ways that I think are almost nurturing, genuinely interested anyway, and it doesn't have that same 90s bite of you know, too cool, too ironic, and so on. And I really enjoyed that about this film, and I don't know if the rest of them are like it or not. I'm excited to find out, and I'm excited to find out with you. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is Movie Talk with Aaron Hunter. I'm Aaron Hunter. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and hey, why not share this video with a friend? I've got more Mumblecore films coming up as I continue this series on that kind of stylistic entity. But until next time, keep watching movies.